Please give a warm welcome to Farmers Union President Mark Watne.
Well, good morning, everybody, and thanks for this opportunity. I do have a couple board members here, North Dakota Farmers Union board members. Wave your hands. I'm not going to go through introductions and so forth. Terry and Ellen over here. With that said, I'm going to approach this just a slight bit different because I think you're going to hear a fair amount of similarity in a lot of presentations about what I see as the farm program not functioning quite up to par. Now, I say that in a way of describing that it's a good underbase, it's a good system that we begin with, but the challenges we face are really around the question that I asked earlier: is the budget dollars going to be there to adequately support a safety net and a crop insurance program that's necessity to maintaining the family farm ag structure that we have across our nation that has made us the envy of the world in food production. And at times I get somewhat frustrated for how much we take that for granted. And I was fortunate just to be over in a World Farm Organization meeting talking about food security with a number of other nations, and they're always amazed at how great our food production system is here and the successes we've had, yet they fully understand the risk at task if you do not maintain and develop and teach that next generation of farmers. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that, show a couple of slides and so forth, and then turn it back to whoever's next on the panel. So you can see up on my screen I got the value of food, and on the tables I put out a pamphlet. There was about 50 or 60 of them distributed out there. There's some up front if you didn't get one. But we've put starving our farmers. Now, literally we're not starving our farmers, but in some respect we are, because we're using the ability of our farmers to produce at a level that keeps cost of food production low, and we price every bit of production on the overproduction, which in essence is driving us to further consolidate to a point where we're driving that new and beginning starting farmers out of our system. And I think that's seemingly a really wrong direction if you're going to maintain a food program. If we look at this in the value of food in a food program, that we're making a large mistake that could have consequences down the road. If we can get this to move. Rainey told me backwards. Where's he at? So I'm thinking we need a paradigm shift, and I mean it's in the conversation, because farmers are really in a catch-22. So if I farm out in Belleville, North Dakota, and everything I do is based on me being substantially more efficient, and if I can't control my expenses because I do not control them in a sense of what I pay for them, and I pay transportation both in and out for my products, I have limited ability other than to become higher producer in volume. So what I do is I do everything in my ability through technology to increase my production. Now my neighbor next to me has the same issue. So to become more efficient increases production. And the neighbor down the road. And then I go to Kansas. In Kansas, I go to South Dakota and Minnesota. And we're in this catch-22 where we continue to increase our production, which is a good thing in the interest of an abundant food supply, but it's a negative to eventually how we're going to get paid for what we produce. And we're in this constant cycle of getting paid less in real dollars than we've been paid before, and there is a point of collapse. This is why we have a farm program. The farm program is to become that safety net so that in those times of price collapse when demand does not match supply, we have something to fall back on to enable us to survive through that year to hopefully see another demand period where we see prices increase and so forth. Now, you can say that that's the typical market, but I'm suggesting to you we don't have the economics that are similar to another market. So when we look at this, do the consumers win when we have this system? Well, in the short term, you could suggest they do. We are spending less than 10% of our disposable income on food. But if you continue the trend of fewer and fewer farms, and you continue the trend of concentration in who supplies us with our products, if you continue the trend on who buys the products from us, eventually there's a point in time when that consolidation is going to force us to look at what's the true cost of production, and we're going to have to start charging that, or we're headed down to a very few number of farmers, and they will organize at some point in time. So in the long term, one could question whether or not the consumer is being supported by the direction we're heading with our current system of agriculture. So farm programs, first of all, ARC, PLC, crop insurance, all of them have some merit. They all have a basis of some really important tools. What's the challenge with them? Now, you can talk about tweaking them, you can talk about making changes, but if you do not fund them at a level where there's some reflection on cost of production, all they are is a small tool to get us by. Now, I'm suggesting that that's not the solution. I'm thinking if you put a value to food, if you really think having an adequate food supply at a reasonable price for the consumer is important, that you have to spend more money on budget. So it's not about what we put in that program and how we write it and how we make it function. At the end of the day, we're cutting it by percentages to make it fit a budget. You should not write a program based on budget dollars alone. It needs to service the purpose of why you're putting the program in place. This is causing us a great damage to farmers not liking programs, consumers not understanding programs, and the fact of the matter is nobody in the U.S. appreciates the quantity of food we produce. And we have to change this conversation because it's so important. We have the declining surplus levels when commodity price falls. This is another fallacy that is in this program. All of us are well aware as farmers in this room. The crop insurance value that you can buy in your revenue assurance is lower because the price average is lower. The ARC program, you're going to see lower coverage with the ARC program, although it's limited to a 10% drop because prices are going down. Now, when we start with a support level below the cost of production, we have a problem when we continue to decline that down to a state where it becomes less valuable to the farmer and really isn't serving the purpose of what the farm safety net is in place for. Now, I know you've seen some of these slides. These are slightly different. These are out to the 2027 year prediction of what may happen, so you'll see a small percentage of change. Now, if you're standing on the outside of the U.S. looking in at our food production system, and it's made up of 96% family farms, and you've seen the successful, the ability we can produce, the ability we can meet demand and supply, and to say that we're only spending 28% of our full federal budget projected out to 2027, that's a 0.28%, or 0.28%, yes. That's a pretty darn good investment. In fact, I would suggest it's too low. We are really doing well with this program. I don't think it's too much to ask to see them dollars go up. So I'm not going to stand here today and defend saying, well, we got to live within our budget means. Agriculture's already done that. And it's time that we put some money back into agriculture because it's so important and we can no longer take the value of food for granted. If we look at the Farm Bill spending again, this is slightly different than the slide you see before because it's a projection out from 2018 to 2027. You can once again see crop insurance only 9%, commodity 7%, and conservation at 7%. And of course, SNAP is the big player within the farm program. We cannot untie SNAP. If we do, we lose our support for farm program. I don't see any way around it. So I think it's important that we hold on to that so that we can go to our consumers, go to the Congress people that represent them urban areas, and we can sell the concept that we do have a really extremely good food system in this country, and we should not play with it because the risk of what would happen if we do not have this system is really extreme. Let's look at the real dollars. Now, this is a chart, and basically what it's showing you is it's showing you that based on the prices from 97 to 05 in real dollars with inflation considered, and you put out there the fact of a trend line of what's been happening in comparison in a percentage of them, you can see that the trend line is straight down. Now, you can run this chart back all the way back to the times of the word parity if you want, and the trend line does not change. The point here is that the only time that we see some price is above the trend line is when we have major demand factors. Can anybody tell me, anybody want to guess what happened in the 70s and what happened in 2011? 70s was the Russian sale of grain. Remember the comment? Produce as much as you can, fence row to fence row, we'll sell every bit you produce. Not true. Us farmers were too good. We overproduced the marketplace. Collapsed the markets. What happened in probably start of 2010, 29? Ethanol. Corn ethanol. Plain and simple. Had it not been for them two demand cycles, you would not see those blips in the market. So what is the next thing that's going to let the marketplace pay farmers for what they truly do? Is there something on the horizon that suggests that we're going to see a demand for grains? Well, you can suggest it's going to be the population growth. You can suggest that technology will not keep ahead of the ability to feed the world. You can project maybe some growth in renewable energies and so forth, but the reality is we are on a trend line where the only solution is back to that catch-22 where the farmer can only survive if they produce more, and then you produce more, you drive prices down, and we get back in that same cycle, and that's not a good scenario to play out. Again, you've seen this slide. Total net farm income's dropping once we got all the ethanol demand, and we met that demand. But here's the challenge. The trend line here on expenses. This is basically telling us that throughout that same period of time, from 06 out, there's no projection where expenses are truly going to drop to match the lower prices in the marketplace. Once again, the farmer's only real solution to this is to produce more, which has, again, that detrimental effect to the commodity price level. So what do? Well, I think we got to start looking first at raising the budget. We should be asking for more. I don't think we should go out there and say we need, just give us what we got. Because we had a number of young farmers come back to farming in North Dakota. In my county alone, it was amazing when the prices were good. I talk to those farmers regularly. They're questioning if they want to stay. So are we going to teach this next generation? Are we bringing back our sons and daughters to the family farm and teaching them how to produce and keeping this totally efficient food system in place? We need to generate new wealth. You do that through agriculture. We do a wonderful job of producing high abundance foods. We provide food security and renewable. This is something we do for free. Is there an avenue where farmers can get paid for some of the things they do, whether it be from conservation, this abundant food supply? What is the value of that to this country, and should it be worth more in a food safety net and so forth? Conversation change. We got to reinforce this value of food. We can no longer let this country take for granted that the food will be there always. It doesn't always have to be. There could be challenges. The consumer is not in the best interest if we come to a point where we actually short the food chain to get a better price for our commodities. That's not in the interest of any country. We have to get over the budget cuts. We've already taken them. We don't need more. The farm program needs to be based on cost of production. It can't be on a declining balance. We need to get it back to a level where if you do have problems and the market doesn't deliver, you can recover them with dollars. 0.28% of the federal budget is not too much to ask for maintaining a food supply.